Welcome back to another episode of Kaiju Customs. Today, again, thanks to a commission from Yaoyao9, we are customizing the Grugeo bone figure from Ultraman Rube. So, just like last time with Zoa Marucci, I commissioned my pal Yaoyao9 to paint this Grugeo bone figure for me because I lack the skill that she does. So, I'm gonna hand this over to her, and she's gonna explain her process behind this custom.
Hello everybody, my name is Yao and I run the Yaoyao9 channel on YouTube. For the past few weeks I was given the opportunity by everybody's favorite meteor human, Daikaiju Legends, to work on a few toys that he planned to use for his upcoming programs. In addition to that, he has also offered to give me this opportunity to speak to all of you in this unscripted manner regarding the procedures that I undertake for every single commission. So, let's get a move on. The first step to a custom is essentially very basic. It's the prep work that goes into making the base body of a figure perfect before you apply any paint. Because if you apply paint first and then you realize, oh wait, there's this seam line or there's this break that I never fixed before, it becomes this really awkward issue. With the figures that Daikaiju Legends ordered from me, however, which is the Zoa Marucci and the Grugeo bone, those are very simple, because they're just repaints. And with most repaints, what you would want to do is to just first wash the figure in some hot soapy water to get rid of whatever mold release or whatever chemicals that Bandai would possibly put in their factories in the injection molds, just to make sure that the paint adheres to the figures 100%. The next step to making your custom is to add in the base coat of color that would give a bed, so to speak, for your other colors to layer on top of when you're making the custom. Now, I personally use what I would like to refer to as an orthodox method, and we're going to get into a less orthodox method later on. As for my method, I like to use a gray base coat because I feel like gray is this very neutral color when it comes to color layering, where when you have gray at the bottom, you're not going to get as much of an effect in terms of really impacting how your color looks versus if you're using something like white or black, because I feel like those really amplify the type of color you're going to get. So with Daikaiju Legends figures, I went with a basic gray coat, but I did not attach any black for shading. The reason for that mostly comes down to my airbrush is really unable to spray in such a small radius that I can highlight the smaller details on the 500 figures without just blasting them with black. So let's talk color base coat and color layering, because that's essentially just the same process as what I'm doing, except to an extent it's a little bit easier. With gray and black as your base coat, what you're essentially doing is that when you're applying a new color over the figure, say you're applying blue, the blue will look slightly brighter or slightly darker depending on which part it's being covered. Trying to go for a color base coat means that you're still using some primer, and most of the time you're using gray primer because why wouldn't you? So for me, it's a double win when I use gray primer and black shadows. But for Daikaiju Legends figures, I still did use a color base coat just to try and apply the same effects. For Grugeo, it's a little bit more simple because Grugeo, looking at him, he looks a little bit colorful, but Grugeo is essentially a monochrome figure where you have a black base body that's coupled with some red. And the red, it fades into the black very subtly, but it's nothing too major. Compare that to Zoa Marucci and you have a completely different story because you're essentially just trying to mimic how an airbrush does things. You're using a dried brush that's, has really coarse bristles so that they don't really bend to the contours of the figure. And you're relying on the contours of the figure itself to have minimal amounts of paint wipe off on some of the elevated areas so that you have essentially a faded effect. And that is applied on the projects that I've been working on for Daikaiju Legends. For Grugeo, it's extremely obvious that this was applied because the red fades into the black, and without an airbrush that it's fairly good, you're not going to be able to get that. So what happened is that I had to use dry brushing to apply all the red and then go back to fix all the parts where the red bled onto the black. So why didn't I go with wet brushing? Because wet brushing is essentially just applying a thin layer of paint and you're going to get the shading effect regardless. Dry brushing just does it better. Now, that's not to say that wet brushing has no merits. If you're trying to get a flat sheet of color, there's no better way of getting a flat, even, smooth coat on your figure than wet brushing. You're thinning your paints, you're getting, that smooth coat. The paint is really thin, it's evened out, it's all good. But with dry brushing, what you're able to achieve is you're able to achieve a near airbrush experience where the colors are a lot more exaggerated. For Grugeo, there were a lot of big coats of black wash to try and dull down the red and to try and just seep into every little detail. The figure is kind of difficult to work with in that way because it's, inherently less detailed than the suit. The textures are all wrong, so even with the wash, it was a fairly difficult process. Let's talk color choice, because in hindsight, color choice really should have been at the beginning of this video, because it's very important trying to get the right shades of color for your figure. Heed my warnings, really, before making any inalterable changes to a figure. Do yourself a favor and learn the color wheel as much as you can, and remember that even if you screw up, people like me who get paid to do these things, I screw up too. And just to remember that there's always a way to correct it. For me, there are a couple ways that I do these final bits, and it all depends on which project I'm working on. Using some flat coat is actually ostensibly a really good idea. But not only that, using these finishes really do work to protect your figure as well. Having a gloss coat or a flat coat on your finished result makes it so that any scratches or abrasives will have to hit the coat first before it really impacts the paint. So it's a win-win overall. It's a little bit costly to buy these things. It's about $4 a can for gloss coat, and it's a little bit more expensive for flat, but in the end I think they're very much worth it. And based on the results that Daikaiju Legends has for his figures, I think it speaks for itself as to how successful this methodology is. All in all, that's my basic procedure for every one of my commissions. Now, of course, it's not the most detailed guide, but I think this commentary goes in depth enough that you all can understand how much work goes into each piece that I make, and hopefully this has been helpful to all of you in case you want to start trying to make your own customs.
And here is a comparison between the original figure and the final customization. Huge thanks to Yaoyao9 for making Grugeo Bone and Zoa Maruchi turn out absolutely fantastic looking. If you're interested at all in what Yao does, I've linked to everywhere that you can find her in the description below, so be sure to check her out. Yao deserves a lot more attention than she gets.
Once again, I'd like to thank Daikaiju Legends for giving me this gracious opportunity to speak to all of you. If you would like to see more of my work, you can access my Facebook page, facebook.com/Kaiju Reanimation Yard, and you can drop me a commission if you want to there. Otherwise, if you want to see some of the time-lapse, or not really time-lapse, but slideshow format videos on how I do all of my work, you can find my YouTube channel at youtube.com/user/Yaoyao9. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you again to Daikaiju Legends, and hopefully you enjoyed your commissions.
I would like to give a special thank you to Patreon supporters GWRzilla, Justice, Liquid Pestar, Jimmy Moore, Jeff King, Johnny Sacco, Jaws Infinity, and a very special thank you to Ultriab. If you would like to learn how you can get your name listed at the end of each of my videos as well, in addition to some other awesome rewards, then be sure to visit patreon.com/DaikaijuLegends.